first time, and the second time we won by even more. And it looks like we might have to think about very strongly a third time.
It's very, very sad that now relationships with the United States have come into question because of Salih Berisha.
To the President and distinguished man of the American nation, the supporter and great freedom fighter.
Booster ne mendohet tani rekomandimi janë 2 doza dhe një booster. Shumë shpejt rekomandimi do ndryshojë në 3 doza. Ne po e shikojmë.
Can you believe it? Now, I'm helped a lot by the current administration. I hate to say that. I hate to admit it, but I am helped a lot by the current.
But it's possible you would put the
Well,
governor
he's certainly somebody that I like a lot.
Të nderuar miq, mirëmbrëma. Takohemi përsëri në Fokus. Javën e kaluar dham një intervistë me Tanush Mulletin, nipin e prefektit Tiranës. Sot kam një letër që Qazim Mulleti dhe disa nacionalistë i dërgojnë Fanolit në Boston për ta sqaruar për situatën në Shqipëri, sepse qeveria e Hoxhës po e përdorte Fanolin pikërisht sikur ai mbështeste qeverinë e Hoxhës. Rom 2 kusht 1946. Hirësis ti emzot Fanolit Boston, Massachusetts. Emzot, me qënë se sunduesit e sotëm të dheu ton përdorin emrin tuaj duke përhapur në popull se emzot Fanoli është edhe ai me ne dhe përpiqet për ne, dhe këtë po e trumbetojnë me konferenca shtypje e trakte, e me që emri juaj në popullin shqiptar është i respektuar dhe me gjithë që jemi të bindur se ju nuk e përkrani një regjim të huaj e terrorist si këta të sotme në Shqipëri, si miq, bashkëpunëtor e veteran tuaj që kemi hequr, vuajtur, munduar për një Shqipëri etnike dhe demokratike, me pak fjalë po ju ekspozojmë gjendjen e vërtetë të vendit ton të shkret, që të keni dijeni mbi çka po bëhet. Dërgoni një komision shqiptarësh dhe ata do t'u vërtetojnë dhe më mirë mbi gjendjen e trishtueshme të vendit ton të dashur. Pranoni ju lutem me Zot falat dhe konsideratat tona më të përzemërta, miqt e bashkëpunëtorët tuaj të vjetër, Qazim Mulleti, Dom Frano Karma, Irfan Ohri, Profesor Stefan Garuli, Pandeli Papalilo dhe Luigi Gargiola. Fund viti ka festat e tij. Shqiptarët e kanë marrë Shqipërinë me vete, edhe këtu në SBA. Festojnë me hymnin e flamurit shqiptar, ata amerikan dhe me këngët e tyre.
Then in Dallas, the American Airlines Center
Bill O'Reilly,
Sunday.
I cili na dha drejtën për intervistën ekskluzive me presidentin Trump, ka filluar turin historik Trump-O'Reilly. Disa segmente, po me lejen e tij, do t'i japim përsëri për Fokus. Trump ka deklaruar se do të garojë përsëri për president.
We won the first time, and the second time we won by even more, and it looks like we might have to think about very strongly a third time. You're lucky we fought like hell, or you would have had a rough situation in Florida. And Ron's done a really good job, and he's a good guy.
Possible number 2 for DeSantis?
Well, first of all, I think the people are going to be very happy with what I do, number one. And I think the people, and by the way, a poll just came out. They have me at a number that nobody's ever been at before. Can you believe it? Now, I'm helped a lot by the current administration, in all fairness. I hate to say that. I hate to admit it, but I am helped a lot by
But
the
it's
current.
possible you would put the
Well,
governor
he's
on.
certainly somebody that I like a lot.
Përbalti duket se do të garoj Hillary Clinton, e akuzuar për korrupsion nga lopant dhe duke qenë një figurë e urryer nga shumica e amerikanëve, bëri të mundur që Trump të fitonte. Bill O'Reilly e thotë që Hillary do të garojë dhe do të kemi mbase një përplasje Trump-Hillary Clinton.
The reality is, if Donald Trump runs, he's going to have to run against a Democrat. Okay, and I'll give your audience this. Hillary Clinton wants the nomination. She knows the Biden administration's fallen apart, which is why you're seeing her surface right now. So it could be a replay.
A ndryshon diçka për shqiptarët, administrata amerikane, sidomos për politikën e jashtme, kontrollohet nga nënpurësit e karrierës. Nga 25.000 vetë që ka Departamenti i Shtetit, vetëm 250 janë emërime politike, pra nuk ikën as Escobar, as Palmer dhe vija vazhdon. A duhet të paguaj Kina dëmshpërblime për Covidin? Ja të dëgjojmë se çfarë tha Trump.
Well, I think they have to pay a price for the damage they caused to the world. I do think that.
What price would that be?
It's got to be a price. And by the way, they create a lot of money. I don't know that they have a lot of money, but they certainly create a lot of money. Nobody has the money that we're talking about, probably 50 or 60 trillion dollars. They don't have that money. Nobody has that money. Nobody will ever have that money. The damage and the death that has been caused. So a lot of people ask me that question. I personally don't think so, but I'll tell you what they did do very badly. They didn't let the world know about it.
Right.
They didn't tell people to keep up your guard. They guarded China. You couldn't get out of Wuhan, or you couldn't get out of the Wuhan
They covered it up.
the province. Well, no, you couldn't get into China, but you could get into Europe, and you could get into the U.S., you could get it all over the world, but they wouldn't let you. So that's a thing that they're going to have to explain. And if we had the right people, they would be explaining. But they should, we talk about reparations, they should pay reparations for the damage.
Trump, gjatë kohës si president, dukej sikur ishte më afër presidentëve autokrat, tiran dhe diktator. Si mbrohet ai?
You enjoy speaking with the most?
I mean, many of them. You know, the ones I did the worst with were the weak ones. We had weak leaders in the world too. The ones I did the best with were the tyrants, and they all say, oh, he loves tyrants. He wants to be a tyrant now. I just, for whatever reason, I got along great with Putin. I got along great with President Xi of China. I got along great with Kim Jong-un of North Korea. And isn't that good? Isn't that better than having a nuclear...
6 janari do të jetë akuza e madhe ndaj Donald Trump për atë që quhet si kryengritjen në Capitol Hill. Por ai ka deklaruar Bill O'Reilly se unë i kam thënë sekretarit mbrojtjes që t'i kërkonte Pelosit 10.000 trupa shtesë policore, sepse policia e Capitol Hill kontrollohet nga Pelosi dhe Schumer. Ajo nuk ka pranuar. Kjo deklarat mund të përmbys hetimet ndaj 6 janarit.
I said, I think this is going to be really big. And I asked the Secretary of Defense, I said, I think you should recommend to Nancy Pelosi and to Congress, because they're the ones that control it, I would like to recommend 10,000 National Guardsmen to go and to police here just in case. I mean, it's a massive rally. This could be over 1 million people. And by the way, I think it was substantially over 1 million people. You never hear that, but I think it was substantially.
Did the DOD go to Pelosi?
Yeah, he did. And they turned Chris Miller, who was a great guy and did a great job. He went to them. I didn't do it as an order. I did it as a suggestion. Because remember, they run the police.
Right, in the district.
Pelosi and Schumer run that whole
So do you?
operation. So a lot of people don't know this. They don't like to report it. So they went there. They recommended that I said, only because I knew the size of this crowd was going to be enormous. What you see there was, again, a very small number of people relative to the people that heard the speeches and went home. And I said 10,000 people. And Nancy Pelosi turned it down.
Did you ever ask her why? Did you ever find
No,
out?
I didn't ask her why.
Okay.
She'd give
Well,
me
next
the
time I
wrong
talk to her, I'll
answer.
ask
It would be
her.
a good thing. Next time you talk to her, ask
Right.
her. Anybody want to ask her why? But you don't hear that. I mean, I'll bet you most of the people in this audience have never heard that before. So I recommended 10, but I said do whatever they want. They're running the Capitol.
Bill O'Reilly e ka kontrolluar dhe në deponimin e sekretarit mbrojtjes ai thotë që telefonova Pelosin. Pelosi nuk pranoi.
How can we be great? So we couldn't use that. We can't say keep America great because I know it's a horrible thing to say, but I don't feel America right now is great. I don't feel it, and neither does anybody in this audience feel it. We're all embarrassed, Bill. We're embarrassed by what happened, whether it's at the borders or Afghanistan. And as bad as the borders are, I think the single most damaging, most embarrassing moment in the history of our country was when we fled Afghanistan, the way we got out. Not getting out, we should have gotten out with strength and dignity. And we got out like, I won't say it, we got out in a way that should never ever happen to this country again. But every one of those leaders that you're asking about, every one of them is watching that. And they no longer respect our country.
So I'm trying to assess Putin and Xi. Who between the two is a bigger threat to America?
When you have nuclear, everybody's a threat. That's why I ended the Iran nuclear deal, because Iran was a threat. And I think they're going to give it back to them, which is not even believable. And if they do, Israel may not exist for very long, because that's what they have in mind. You can never do that. But I think when you have nuclear weapons, it's a different ballgame.
There's two individuals who can order the nuclear weapons.
Let me tell you about both. I know both of them even better than I know you, and I know you pretty well, but I know both of them even better. I would say this, both very, very strategic, very, very smart. They both love their countries. They really do. They love their countries. They were afraid of this country, of our country. They're no longer afraid. They have no fear of our country anymore. They have no fear because of the leadership. A year ago, they had tremendous respect and fear, whatever you want to call it. Today, they have none. I think they're both at the top of their game. Our gentleman is not at the top of his game, but most importantly, I'm not sure he ever was. If you look back at his record, if you look back at the decisions he's made over a 40-year period, he has never been at the top of his game.
We'll get to him. But you still haven't answered my question. Who's more dangerous?
I think, honestly, I think they're both dangerous. It depends on what day you're talking about. China has a massive military. I did ask this question to Putin, because Putin is an interesting guy, but he's a little bit, he loves comedy, believe it or not, and he loves sarcasm. And usually I'd ask him about a question, and he'd say things like, oh, they're sort of like nothing. I asked him about China, and he was very serious. He said, exact words, they are a great and powerful force. They are a powerful, powerful nation. There was no smiling. There was no anything. There was no anything.
How do we fix journalism in this country? Take it and run with it.
Well, I think the first thing, and I really mean this, it's we talked about how evil it is, how corrupt it is. I say it's the enemy of the people, and it is. And it's hard for you to know. He understands it better than anybody probably in the world, maybe me. But you know what? When you know like a subject really well and you're part of the story, if you're a carpenter, if you're an electrician, if you're a Wall Street guy, if you're whatever, you don't know if the story's like correct or not correct. So you're reading something and you assume it's correct. We took the ratings of the press from very high to, I think it's lower now than Congress, if you can believe that, okay? But the way, I think the only way you're going to fix it is you have to do something about the libel laws. Our country has been run by fools and idiots for a long time. And we just can't let that happen anymore. And then we have an election that was a disgrace. And now we have people that are destroying our country. Our country is being destroyed before your very eyes. Our country is being destroyed with millions of people coming in, with a military that's not allowed to do what they do, which is ideally nothing. You know, when you have a really strong military, you're not going to have to use it. When you have a weak military, that's when you're going to have to use it. But our military was so strong, Bill, so powerful, nobody would have played games. And in one horrible day in Afghanistan, the whole world no longer respects our military and no longer respects our country. But we can turn that around, make America great again.
Pyetjes së O'Reillyt se çfarë do të bënte ndryshe, ai u përgjigj.
If you had one thing to do differently during your presidency, what would it be?
So, it's a great question. It has been asked a few times, and you know, there will always be things you would do differently, no matter what whether it's your business or your personal life, no matter what. When I came to Washington, I was only there 17 times in my life. I didn't know the people very well. I had to rely on people to give me recommendations. I would certainly have made certain, and we had some great people, but certain personnel changes. I would have had a few other, he says Attorney General, how about that? Now I would have made some other choices, and now I've been there for 4 years, and I'm sort of still there because everyone's calling, you know, wanting me to endorse and giving me recommendations and all of these things. So I would say really personnel changes. I wish I had a choice to, or a chance to do that again, and maybe we will have, but now I know everyone and we won't be making any mistakes. I hope we're not going to make any mistakes.
To the President and distinguished men of the American nation, the supporter and great freedom fighter, the distinguished friend of Albania and the Albanians,
për kontributin e veçantë të çlirimit dhe mbështetjen e popullit shqiptar dhe popujve të tjerë të cilët për dekada vujtën në diktaturë komuniste.
For special contribution to the liberation and support of the Albanian people and other peoples as well who have suffered for decades under the communist dictatorship.
Surprise of Albania, who now taste freedom, now feel the wonders of democracy and are working to improve the lives of all of their countrymen. And so I'm very grateful.
Family, I'll be honest, look, we've got a president, no, we've got to be fair, we've got a president, there's, they're very angry at this family, aren't they? Look, I can say this, what they've done to my family is a disgrace, okay? What they've done to my family. And people want that to happen. It's almost a question that I get more than anything because you know it's so corrupt. And again, it's being looked at right now. It's a shame that it has to be looked at. Millions of dollars came out of China. Millions of dollars came out of Ukraine. Millions of dollars came out of Russia. These are all places that we're dealing with now.
Media televizive korporatave u munduan ta fshejnë turin e Trump dhe O'Reillyt në Florida, madje duke thënë dhe se shikueshmëria dhe biletat ishin shumë të ulta. Në fakt ka qenë e kundërta. Një specialist thotë që Trump tregoi në këto dy takime të turit që po shkon nga qendra e djathtë dhe jo si ekstremist. Pra mund të ndryshojë.
In the sense that I think he put up his main defense on January 6th with you, which is that he did request from the Secretary of Defense and to Pelosi that there would be more troops surrounding the Capitol. And I think that's important to follow that path, because that will be Donald Trump's defense in front of the Congressional Commission. And second, when he said nice things about Barack Obama and was pretty calm about the Biden family, it showed me, if you're correct, and I believe you are, that he's going to be running for president, all things considered, in 2024, he did, I mean, in 2026, he did seem to, want to show himself as moving a little bit more towards center right, not hard right. When he's campaigning, he really goes after people, but I think he's taking this exercise with you seriously as creating a more sober-minded, less euphoric or, type of, memory for people.
Po t'i kthehemi dhe intervistës ekskluzive, ta dëgjojmë edhe një herë se çfarë thot Trump për O'Reillyn.
Last question in the formal interview, and then we'll do a little bit of a history tour. How does it feel to be the most controversial president in history?
I don't think I'm the most controversial.
Who?
I don't know, but I don't think I'm. Look, I did a good job. I think, a great job.
But I don't think that doesn't. Let's put that aside, though.
Biggest tax cuts in history.
I know that, but
biggest
you're the
regulation
most controversial president in history.
I don't think so.
Who would be more controversial?
They've had plenty of controversial presidents. I mean, we've had a lot of controversial.
You know me. I'm a historian.
And I'll tell you what. Somebody said the other day, also a historian, said they don't know of any president that's done more. We rebuilt the military. We started Space Force. Not for 75 years with Air Force has a new military branch been developed, and we have it developed and fully developed. We've done so much. Help themselves.
So let's look ahead. That's what everybody wants to know now. If you decide to run for president again, you'll be in Grover Cleveland territory. You know that.
I do.
The only president who is elected to non-consecutive terms. So a lot of people are asking me, and I get tons of mail on this, will President Trump change his style a bit if he runs again to be less confrontational, to try to win over independent voters? Will you do that?
Well, let me just tell you before I give you that answer, I had no choice but to be aggressive and confrontational because I was hit with many phony deals from Russia, impeachment, hoax number 1, impeachment hoax number 2, so many, Ukraine. We were hit with so many different things. The Mueller investigation, which turned out to be no collusion, that you had to be confrontational and you had to move fast. And on top of that, I ran a country and we rebuilt the military and we did the biggest tax cuts and regulation cuts and all of the things we did. So I'd like to have a little bit more peaceful presidency from the standpoint that the radical left went after me like they've never gone after a president.
But you know that when you were in the primary up against your Republicans who wanted to be president, it was Lion Ted, it was Sweaty Marco, it was Boring Jeb. I mean, you really went in and battered these guys. Would you do it again if you're primaried? Would you do it that way?
I think it depends on who I'm running against. I mean, I have no idea who it would be.
What if it was Paul Ryan?
Well, that would be.
You're going to go after him. You're going to.
No, if it was Paul Ryan, I'd attack him very hard. I think he's terrible.
what's happening here? Is any way Trump coming back or not?
So we have, is Trump coming back? Who knows? Is there a possibility? I think yes. Is it good for this country? I don't think so. I believe Trump is a egotistical, narcissistic individual who really doesn't care about anything other than himself. So in ways, he's very similar to Sully Berisha. So here you have great polarization between Democrats and Republicans in the United States, but you also have conflict within the Republican Party. In Albania, there's great polarization between Democrats and socialists, but now there's also conflict within the Democratic Party. So it's unfortunately, it's too small of a country to be having all these problems. There are other issues, and they shouldn't be dealing with this. And it all gets back to the same problem that Albania's had since it's come out of communism, and that problem is Sully Berisha. Here, there's nothing, in my opinion, there's very little to unify Albanian Americans. I don't think Albanian Americans have any interest in Berisha, and there's no unifying cause. Kosovo was a unifying cause. Berisha is certainly not a unifying cause. As far as the situation in Albania, it's very, very sad that now relationships with the United States have come into question because of Sully Berisha. I don't know if the embassy...
Is that the first time? Is that the first time?
That what? I'm sorry, the first time what?
America and Sully Berisha. It happened in 97, 98.
Well, of course.
But he came in power.
In 97, they had no choice because he had to go. He had made a catastrophe. And the fact that he's been able to come back after 1997 is still a miracle.
Ndërkohë që Trump ka nisur turin e historik, dhe sot është në Texas, në Shqipëri përfunduan ato që u quajtën folklore. Por a mund të jetë njësoj folkloria në Librasht me në Florida? Ja çfarë thash për lajmet e MCN-it. Unë kisha një lloj tjetër ideje, një Zoom Berisha me intelektual këtu në Amerikë, arkitekt, inxhinier, doktor, gazetar, por ai pëlqen stilin e tij. Personalisht nuk jam dakord që folkloria në New Jersey ose në Jacksonville të jetë njësoj si folkloria në, le të themi, në Librasht, në Kukës apo në Ndibër. Megjithatë, Berisha dërgon sinjale. Ne jemi shumë shqiptar amerikan me drejt vote, mund të jemi gjysmë milion, dhe zgjuarësia është në Jacksonville. Në New Jersey nuk ka vlerë sepse është shtet blu. Në Jacksonville shqiptarët kanë power tek vota e tyre sepse është një shtet që është i kuq, republikan, por në zgjedhjet e fundit për guvernator vetëm me 30.000 vota janë ndarë. Pra vota shqiptare ka trysni, ka presion ndaj kongresmenëve në Jacksonville, ndaj senatorëve. Berisha e kupton. Politika e tij duhet të zhvendoset tek republikanët në Kongres dhe në Senat. Amerika është më e gjerë, më e madhe se Yuri Kim dhe Escobar. Vendimi i zgjuar, Berisha për çdo gjë mund të akuzohet për që është budalla, nuk mund t'i thuash. Ai e ka bërë këtë betejë dhe ka pasur njerëz shumë herë më të mëdhenj se Yuri Kim dhe Escobar. Ka qenë Timothy Wirth, nërsekretar shteti, kanë qenë ambasadorë të tjerë. Ky është stili i Berishës, sepse e ka kuptuar që pushteti i SBA-s nuk është thjesht tek burokratët në ambasadë apo në departament, është në Kongres, është në Senat. Ndaj ai ka zgjedhur këtë lloj, sepse sulmi ndaj tij ka qenë i ashpër, do të perifrazoj Trumpin, kur më godet, unë të godas prapsht. Nuk ka thënë asgjë që është kundër Amerikës, nuk ka sharë Amerikën, nuk është faj Berishës që Yuri Kim realisht po sillet si ambasadorja sovjetike dikur. Dhe unë ndjej veten keq, jo unë, por shumë të tjerë që kanë qenë diplomat. Natyrisht që ne kemi aleat strategjik SBA-n, e kemi këtë territor prej Amerikës, por nuk e kemi nga Escobar ose Yuri Kim. Natyrisht ajo përfaqëson administratën, por kjo nuk do të thotë që ne jemi republikë bananesh. Pra, edhe me aleatin e madh strategjik, mund të kesh përplasje, mund të ndërtosh çështjen tënde dhe të arrish dhe të jesh fitues. Fundit demokracia është votë. Këtë na e kanë mësuar vetë amerikanët. Sepse duke parë ecurinë ambasadorëve që kanë ardhur në Shqipëri, ne e dim çfarë niveli kanë ardhur. Hiq Arsonin, por që u akuzua këtu dhe për një korrupsion për ndërtimin e fshatit në ambasadën amerikane, vetëm Jeffrey dhe Lake kanë qenë në nivel real ambassador. Të tjerët nuk e kanë pasur këtë gradë, nuk kanë gradën ambasador. Dhe duket shenja protagoniste nga Jurikim, ndërkohë që Escobar është një burokrat karriere në departament. Por unë nuk prisja që Escobar të dilte kundër Blinkenit me vendimin non grata. Natyrisht, ai do të mbroj vijën e departamentit shtetit. E kam thënë edhe herë tjetër, departamenti i shtetit kontrollohet nga kultura ultraliberale. Është fakt. Soros ka ndikim. Është fakt gjithashtu. Dhe po t'i kthehem pastaj jetës politike amerikane, akuzave të nderuarit Trump për atë që quhet deep state, mua më lë të mendoj që ka me të vërtet segmente caktuara që në ndikimin e grupeve të interesit edhe në politikën e jashtme amerikane luajnë me të tilla mënyra. Por si e ndjen veten Jurikim kur shikon 7.000-8.000 vet atje? Është një sfidë e madhe. Për mendimin tim, fitues në këtë moment është Berisha. Se si do të vazhdojnë ngjarjet atje, në qoftë do të vendoset vota e lirë, Berisha mund mos jetë fare kandidat për kryetar partia, nuk e di, mund të fitojë dikush tjetër. Fakti që po largon një grupim që nuk përfaqëson shumicën.
Just like the problem of communism is still lingering in Albania, the mentality is still polluted the minds of Albanians. The 1997 caused Albania to go back maybe 2 decades.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, Berisha is very tenacious. And like I said, he's like Donald Trump. He's very single-minded. He focuses on something, and he focuses on getting back into power so that he can get back in control of the PRESIDENTIT.
Why the State Department is not making public the dossier they have? Because it's one of the congressmen asking for that.
Congressmen can ask for it. That doesn't mean they have to give it. The Congress, just so they have to understand Albania, and that no congressman can tell the State Department what to do. Congress as a whole may be able to. They may be able to make have more influence, but no single congressman can do anything. And by the way, that one congressman you're talking about, I followed up with him, so I made sure that he knows that he's the man that he was out there trying to, in some indirect way, help Salih Berisha. I made sure that he knew something about Salih's background and not the garbage from or whatever they're talking about with Soros. I mean, Berisha keeps talking about Soros. But there are many other issues that we know about that Soros had nothing to do with. Soros had nothing to do with. I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's a new book coming about Soros from Matt Palumbo. And he writes that the dossier was done by Fico.
The book says what? I'm sorry.
The dossier of Berisha is prepared by Dalina Fico.
I don't know if that's true or not. I mean, don't forget, that book is a book that is very anti-Soros. And I'm not a fan of George Soros.
I know.
Okay. So it's written by someone that is highly biased. And I don't know if it's factual. I really don't know. But I doubt very much, even if Soros was involved. Let's say he did use his leverage to try to do that. Did he say to Blinken, well, I just want you to attack Salih Berisha? There's no proof. There's nothing. Just go ahead and do it. No way. It just did not happen. It just did not happen. If they have something, and they didn't need Soros for that dossier. All they needed to know, look, everybody knows the CIA has lived in that embassy since the fall of communism. They have lived there. Those people that call themselves diplomats, you can be sure that certain of them are attached to the CIA.
25% of them, for sure.
Okay, so they look and they see what's going on. They have their own dossier. They did not need George Soros for this. And again, there are very public issues that Albanians are familiar with. Albanians are very familiar with. They're very familiar with 1997. They're very familiar with Taci and the relationship between Taci and Salih Berisha. They're very familiar with the story of war dogs and how the arm deal came down. And we knew who was involved with that. That deal did not get done without the cooperation of the Albanian government. So I know one thing for a fact, Soros wasn't in that, it didn't bring that dossier. I know that for a fact because I brought that dossier to the New York Times. So Soros is not behind every problem in Albania. It's the who's behind every problem in Albania is Salih Berisha.
Did you support him in 94, 95?
Yeah, because I was naive. Because yes, I certainly did.
I remember a meeting in the Plaza Hotel.
Yeah,
we talked and supported
that's
him
right.
a lot.
And I met with Salih Berisha then too, and everybody was behind Berisha at that point for a couple of reasons. Number one, we saw Albania opening up from communism.
Mm-hmm.
So it's something that many of us never thought we'd ever see.
Yeah.
And Berisha came up, and he's clever enough to say the right things. He was a communist, and I think he's still a communist, quite frankly. But he was clever enough to come up and say, "Oh, I love America. I'm a Democrat. I'm going to do everything for democracy." So he said the right things. These are the things that I, as an Albanian American, wanted to hear. So it was good. It was good. But then I got to know him a little better. I got to know that he is a liar. I got to know that there's something psychologically wrong with him. And then, of course, there was the explosion of 1997 where he refused. He refused to listen to the advice of experts and instead supported BALKANS, and Albania went up in flames.
But you supported him after 97. I remember in 2002, 2003, before the election.
That's absolutely correct. That's absolutely correct. Because I had viciously attacked him after that point in time. But then my friend Fatos Nano came back into power. And I saw Fatos Nano as being a problem for Albania. I saw Fatos Nano's corruption. I had my own intelligence on Fatos Nano. I was also given information by Berisha, because don't forget, Berisha called me.
Mm-hmm.
I shouldn't say he called me. He sent Linda Ishani,
mm-hmm.
who was
nice lady,
to come to see me in New York. She came to my office and she said, "Oh, Salih Berisha respects you so much now. He sees what you're doing with Fatos Nano. And he wants to work with you." And I told her, I said, "No," I said, "he's a piece of garbage. He caused 1997, et cetera, et cetera. He lied to me." She said, no, he's changed. You don't understand." She goes, "Talk to him." So right there, I talked to him on the phone. I'm so proud of you, what you're doing with Fatos Nano. I want to work with you. I want to help you." So I said, "Okay." So I then viciously attacked Fatos Nano. And I'm not the only person, but I helped. Some with lies that were given to me by Salih Berisha. And of course, Berisha promised, they say I'm mad because Berisha promised me something. He did promise me something. He promised me that he was going to fight corruption.
Mm-hmm.
And he promised me that he was going to fix the telecoms. Well, he did none of that.
Fatkeqësisht, ka kohë që është thënë nga ambasadori amerikan, në mos gaboj nga Donald Lu, që celula anti-amerikane kanë filluar në Shqipëri. Nuk mund të jemi më 100% pro-amerikan, sepse unë e di shumë mirë që ka shumë shqiptar, sidomos nga e majta, që nuk e duan Amerikën, që nuk e kanë patur kur aspiratën e demokracisë amerikane, që mund të kenë marrë dhe green card në Amerikë dhe përsëri janë anti-amerikan, por në përgjithësi populli shqiptar është pro-amerikan. Por me sa duket, problemi është nga të dyja palët, si nga opozita që po sulmonash, por dhe nga diplomacia amerikane. Unë mbaj mend një takim me Pjetër Arbënorin në Departament State Department diku nga 98, ku ai pa të thënë nën sekretarit të shtetit që me këtë rrugë do të bëni që pjesa e madhe e opozitës të bëhet anti-amerikane.
They will work with who was in position of power. At that time, they knew Fatos Nano. They knew who he was, but again, they worked with him. So I don't know if they were favored one side or the other. I thought they were a little bit too friendly with Fatos Nano, but whatever. Berisha was very clever. And with the help of people like me who attacked Nano, he got back to power. And of course, after he got back to power, he didn't want to talk to me anymore. That was finished. He didn't want to talk anymore. So now I'm doing a lot of...
I remember you came in Albania in 2005. I had you on my show.
Of course, the Democrats loved me at that point.
Yeah.
The Democratic Party, they loved me. I was their hero. They changed with the wind. I'm pretty much the same. I'm trying to do what I think is in the best interest of Albania. I don't care about Eddie Rama. I don't care about Salih Berisha. Eddie Rama has he has no control over me. If anything, he owes me. So, I don't think he's doing such a bad job. If he's corrupt, fine. Show me the file on Eddie Rama and I'll attack him. But I don't have a file on Eddie Rama. I do have a file on Sully Berisha, though. So, of course, the stations who are against Berisha and see what I'm saying will use it. This is just, and trust me, if I start all of a sudden embracing Berisha, his stations will come around to me. This is the way it works in Albania. There is no, it's just a mess. It's a mess. It's like it's all communist mentality. Here's the reality. First of all, the most important ambassadorial positions from the United States are places like Germany,
England,
the United Kingdom,
Germany,
and those positions don't go to career diplomats.
Yeah.
They go to people that have power, and usually the power comes from money.
I know.
And that they've been strong financial backers. Look at the people who occupy those positions. That's typically the case. Not always, but most of the time. Albania is a small country. It's like where they train ambassadors.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay, they use it as a training ground. They figure how much damage can the person do, so they put people there. You're never going to see a very influential American given a position in Albania. It's always going to be a career diplomat. So and it has nothing to do with who Albania sends to United States. They have no one of any significance to send to the United States.
Departamenti i Shtetit përmes zëdhënësit jep mesazhe. Duket që sinjali ka shkuar nga ambasadori Juri Kim Tiranë, duke kërkuar një mbështetje sepse në sfidën Juri Kim Berisha ajo ndihet me kuota shumë të ulta. Dhe do të ishte normale që Departamenti i Shtetit do të mbante anën e ambasadores vet. Nuk është era e parë që ndodhin skandale të tilla me diplomacinë amerikane vitet e fundit. Më skandalozi ka qenë Grinell, Open Gay, ambasador politik në Gjermani, i cili krijoi skandale shumë të mëdha, saqë udhëheqës politik gjerman kërkuan që ai të bëjë non grata në Gjermani.
He was one of the exceptions in terms of the ambassadors to Germany. One of the prior ones that you mentioned, Ambassador to Germany, Richard Holbrooke was ambassador. I brought Richard Holbrooke together with the Albanian Americans, and that was a very important part of the history of the lobbying with Kosovo. Like Trump's Basha. He's a little puppet. He's a nothing. He's not respected here in the United States. In terms of position in national intelligence, he was not qualified for that job. He came here, he tried to push a deal down the Kosovars' throats. That was not good for the Kosovars. They just wanted to cut a deal so that Donald Trump could say he did something. So Grenell is a joke. He's a clown.
Unë do t'ju sjellja një shembull, nuk është era parë me Shqipërinë. Në kohën kur Shqipëria shpallte mbretin zog, i dërguari amerikan në Tiranë që nuk quhej ambasador për ministër dhe ishte legat sepse ambasador kishin vetëm fuqitë e mëdha, thotë se në mjediset e ambasadës erdhën mbi 2000 vet. Unë bajta një fjalim, mos prisni t'ja u dërgoj. Unë nuk jam si diplomatët e tjerë në Shqipëri që i trajtojnë këta si fëmijë, si foshnjë kopshti. Më vjen keq, por përsëri jemi kthyer në ato pozita. Nuk është era parë që Berisha bën akuzën ndaj një ambasadore amerikane, ka qenë më i ashpër, më i egër me Linën, por nuk ka pasur këtë akses në media ndërkohë. Dhe ai e ka zgjedhur këtë stil për plasje të fortë, duke i thënë dhe guvernatore, sepse e di që në 97, 98, 99 amerikanët ishin më të ashpër ndaj tij dhe ai kishte një gjuhë më të ashpër ndaj ambasadorëve të tyre, por u kthyen pushtet. Trump është një figurë politike që nuk duhet të kaluar me lehtësi. Natyrisht nuk është i njohur si konservator, si i djathtë, por doktrina e tij pati një kulm tek mbështetja e shtetkombit. Ja çfarë thot një nga zyrtarët politike në Departamentin Amerikan të Shtetit kohës Trump, e njohur, Kiron Skinner, pikërisht për shtetkombin nga Trump.
And then he made some really important theoretical observations that you would not expect from Donald Trump. He talked about the nation state, a return to focusing on the nation state as the core unit of analysis in the international system. He never said that multilateral institutions don't matter. He never said that international agreement should all be abandoned. But he said, think about the unit in the international system that provides education, safety, prosperity, security for people, and it's the nation state. If you read his UN General Assembly speeches in totality, all four of them, you will see an alternative theory of international relations based on the idea that sovereignty is the core unit in the international system. He outlines it beautifully. And he also talked about Western civilization. Read his speech in Poland, and he talks about defending the West. So he believed in these ideas that really left scholars scrambling. If Donald Trump went up for tenure at Harvard, he would get tenure based on Google Scholar because he had more scholars in international relations on the left revisiting ideas that they thought were settled decades ago. And that's no joke. It really did happen. So he took on this idea that nations were kind of less important in the world. He reasserted it. That's the idea of America first. And he said there are lots of things that matter, but he said the national interests should dominate all other interests of states. That sounds like heresy in many academic and international relations and think tank quarters, but he said it in really bold colors all the time. And I think he had a huge impact on shifting our understanding.
Kjo ishte një emrim politik me nivel të lartë, çka i mungon sot Departamentit Amerikan të Shtetit. Duket se ka një përplasje midis politikës shqiptare dhe zyrtarëve amerikan. Duhet jemi të saktë, të qartë që ambasadoria amerikane në Tiranë përfaqëson presidentin Biden, emëruar nga presidenti Trump, dhe natyrisht përçon vijën e Departamentit Amerikan të Shtetit. Amerika ka qenë, mbetet dhe do të jetë aleatu ynë strategjik. Dhe çdo shenjë dhe çdo celul anti-amerikane dëmton çështjen shqiptare dhe të gjithë partitë. Natyrisht që ambasadorë të ndryshëm kanë nivele të ndryshme diplomacie dhe krijojnë probleme, jo vetëm në Shqipëri. Një nga problemet më skandaloze ishte me Grinell, por që ishte ambasador emërim politik në Gjermani, që nuk përfaqësonte vlerat konservatore, aq sa administrata e Merkelit e injoroi, ndërsa Trump e tërhoqi përsëri. Rasti i Shqipërisë është më ndryshe. Një vend i vogël, edhe pse antar i NATO-s, duhet di të sillet me të dërguarit amerikan, natyrisht me dinjitet, duke mos lejuar veten që të trajtohen si republikë banane. Ne i kemi parë këto mesazhe që nga koha e Rarsonit dhe na vjen keq që në Shqipëri nuk kanë ardhur nivele të larta diplomatike, por çdo gjë është reciproke. Sepse dhe shqiptarët nuk kanë dërguar në Washington nivele të lartë politik, madje thyen në ligjet diplomatike ka rreth 8 vjet që është dikush ambasadore, duke mos sjellë një emërim politik, si e majtë dhe si e djatha, ndaj edhe niveli që vjen në Shqipëri nuk e ka pasur gradën ambasador, vetëm Jeffrey ka qenë me potencial të madh dhe Rarsoni që ishte si lëvizje politike. Në rastet veçanta thuhet që në vende ku ka trazira, ambasador mund të vihet edhe dikush nga CIA. Dihet që 25% janë të CIA-s dhe në rastet veçanta, në shtete ku ka trazira, edhe ambasadori mund të jetë nga kjo agjenci. Përpilimi i dosjeve për korrupsionin bëhet në mënyrë institucionale, pa diskutim, nuk është dënim politik ose juridik, por është dënim institucional. Escobar ka folur dhe tha që ne nuk mbajmë asnjë anë, unë do t'ju jap për ju se çfarë ka thënë Escobar për median e huaj përpara se të vinte në Shqipëri, për marrëdhëniet me Kosovën, natyrisht dhe për mos qëndrimin politik ndaj partive në Shqipëri.
Go forward, we will continue to show our full support for Mr. Lychak and his team, and we'll continue to look and encourage the two sides to look for constructive solutions.
When will you visit Belgrade? Do you think further dialogue makes sense without issue of establishment of the community of Serb municipalities? And the second question, is the Washington Agreement still in force as far as Gazavoda is concerned?
With regard to the commitments made in Washington in September of last year, they are commitments that we hold important, particularly the moratorium on derecognitions and recognitions. We think that holding to that part of the agreement will give the dialogue some space to resolve broader issues. In terms of Gazivoda, I look at it in terms of a broader regional energy strategy. There are a lot of exciting things that are happening in the Balkans right now with regard to energy. And one of them is that there is a growing potential for renewable energy, and Gazivoda will be part of that solution. But the solutions will be regional, and they will contribute not only to their EU requirements, but also with regard to helping mitigate the effects of climate change. So
how do you see the chances of progress or even a breakthrough by the EU-facilitated Belgrade-Pristina dialogue?
Well, I see a lot of optimism, and he has our full support. So we will work with the two parties, and we will coordinate very closely with not just the special rep, but also with our Quint partners. I don't know what you would classify as a breakthrough, but I would anticipate that there will be great progress in the next year.
Will there be greater involvement of the U.S. in the Kosovo-Serbia dialogue, and what will your role be in this process?
Well, the dialogue is EU-led, so it will continue to be EU-led because ultimately our hope is that it will result in integration into Europe of the whole region. And with regard to our role has always been very present in the region. With Kosovo in particular, we have an enormous assistance program. We hold leadership positions within KFOR, and we have very, very strong bilateral cooperation with Kosovo. And the same is true with Serbia. We have a very good partnership with Serbia on many issues, law enforcement issues, migration issues, and economic issues. And we hope that we can leverage those partnerships to bring some greater understanding between the two parties.
Yes. Is it true that Kosovo, with the action in the north, has endangered national security? There have been reports in the media that such a thing was told to President Osmana by the State Department.
I won't comment on diplomatic communications, but we do have very close communication with the governments in Belgrade and Pristina. And we're urging caution and restraint on both sides, and I think they both did. So the idea was to bring negotiators to Brussels and to hammer out a deal, an immediate deal, in the hopes of later creating a mechanism to find a more sustainable solution.
Are on the right path, and do you think they'll be resolved quickly, or do you think this will take a long time?
The resolution will depend on the goodwill of the parties. I can tell you that the dialogue and Lajčák staff are working very diligently to put as much on the agenda as possible and to present some good options on.
Por duket që ambasadori amerikan atje po mbanan. Askush nuk mund të rinë në pushtet dhe nuk mund vinë në pushtet me ndihmën e ambasadorëve në asnjë vend të botës. Natyrisht që këtë duhet ta kuptojnë edhe ata që duhen të marrin pozita drejtuese tek partia më e madhe e opozitës. E kam thënë disa herë që partitë tona vazhdojnë me stilin e partisë punës. Atë ditë kur do të kemi stilin e organizimit të partive amerikane elektorale, demokracia do të ketë një shans. Covid ka marrë një përhapje të madhe, Omikron, doktoresha shqiptare nga Houston, Rubina Muzina. Çfarë na tha për situatën në SBA dhe çmasa duhet marrë në Shqipëri?
Omikroni nga të dhënat që kemi këtu, mendohet se Omikroni në 3 deri në 8 javët e ardhshme do të jetë pjesë dominante e varianteve në Shtetet Bashkuara të Amerikës, siç e dini edhe ju, sidomos në New York, është rastet me Omikron po rriten. Pse Omikroni ne i kemi syt nga të dhënat edhe jemi shqetësuar për të. Arsyeja nuk është mbase ajo shkalla e rëndë e sëmundjes, por arsyeja kryesore është transmetimi shumë i shpejt. Ne po shohim gjithashtu edhe kalimi të sëmundjes tek personat që janë të vaksinuar, pra reinfektimi atyre personave që kanë kaluar Covidin si dhe atyre personave të cilët janë të vaksinuar. Kjo është një sëmundje virale e sëmundjeve e rrugëve të sipërme të frymarrjes si fillim dhe pastaj përhapet kudo. Ne duhet ta theksojmë vaksina të pengon të shkosh në spital, vaksina të mbron nga rastet e rënda, nga vdekja, nuk të mbron nga infektimi. Ju siç e dëgjuat edhe sot edhe futbolli amerikan, basketbolli do të shtyn ndeshjet, Broadway është mbyllur, Delta dhe Omikroni janë bashkë, së bashku me rastet e gripit që të cilat po rriten, është një koktejl i rrezikshëm për këtë dimër. Për sa i përket Shqipërisë, edhe unë flas me kolegët e mia atje, më shqetëson një lloj mënyre, jo shpërfillse mund të them, po një lloj mënyre qetësuese, si ky duke thënë që ky variant nuk jep akoma forma të rënda, por duhet të thënë dhe kjo në Afrikën e Jugut kur filloi ishte te moshat e reja, ne ditë pas dite shkenca po e ndjek, do të shikojmë se si shkon. Unë prapë them, sidomos në këtë kohë e dimrit, njerëzit vinë nga jashtë, ne do të kemi një val, presim në Shqipëri mbase fundi i vitit, mbasi janari.
Boosteri i tretë i Pfizer dhe Moderna, a ka efektshmëri?
Edhe ne kishim një konferencë dje me FDA-n për këtë arsye. Booster ne mendohet tani, rekomandimi janë 2 doza dhe një booster. Shumë shpejt rekomandimi do të ndryshojë në 3 doza. Ne po e shikojmë nga studimet klinike, si dhe studimet në laborator që një dozë booster, një dozë përforcuese është në fakt regjimeni normal në këtë kohë për Omikronin. Omikroni me ndryshimet e mutacionit në atë gjëmbin e vet ka bërë të mundur që të shpërthejë mbrojtjen ndaj vaksinave, prandaj një dozë përforcuese do të jetë shumë shpejt, ajo do ndryshojë dhe unë dua edhe njerëzit në Shqipëri ta mendojnë diçka të tillë. Nuk është më 2 doza plus një dozë përforcuese, janë 3 doza për të na kaluar për të na ruajtur nga Omikroni.
Edhe pse u bën vaksinat, këtë vit kanë vdekur më shumë njerëz në Amerikë se sa në vitin e fundit të Trumpit. Pse ndodh kjo?
Pëlqen kur përcakton në rast të presidentit nuk ka asgjë të lidhur me politika. Unë nuk dua të futem në pjesën politike, unë jam mjeke, është një këndvështrim mbase tjetër që ju gazetarët, politikanët mbase mund ta shohin në atë drejtim, unë prap them janë rreth 1 milion vdekje që janë prevenuar, parandaluar nga vaksinat. Kjo ishte pjesa e dytë, është epidemia e të pavaksinuarve. Duhet të themi, Robert, që ne kemi gati 60-70 milion Amerikanë që nuk janë vaksinuar, po shohim në spitale raste të deltës me shumicë, është dhe Omikroni mbi të, unë pra po them, të pambrojturit në një lloj mënyre, ne kemi plane të tjera edhe virusi nuk fal.
Nga unë, Robert P0APA, natën e mirë.